It's up again. There it is, bouncing on the concrete. 4 sixes in 4 balls. We've had some very good hitting, a very good 140 by Bolas. But this makes him 64.
The 5th 6 would actually be caught on the boundary before the fielder fell over the rope trying to hold on.
And that will just carry. No, he's going to be out. Caught out. Oh, he dropped it. He's over the boundary. 5 on the trot. 70 on the board. And he's done it! He's done it! And my goodness, it's gone way down to Swansea.
It was the first occasion it happened, and to add to his world record, 365 not out at the time, which, you know, those were 2 records which he held. Perhaps Sobers doesn't give it all that credit now because he hit 6 sixes. He was just going for it. But at the time, and even now, it resonates as one of the outstanding feats of the game.
I remember thinking there's only one bloke could do it, and that would be Sobers. If somebody said that there's been 6 sixes hit at St Helens, you'd say, I bet Sobers has hit them.
Sobers became a legend in England. The West Indian captain was one of the first to tread what is now a well-worn path for professional cricketers. Arguably the greatest ever ambassador for Calypso cricket, Sobers would captain a rest of the world team to tour England and Australia.
Oh, the magnificent shot. He fastened onto that like a panther.
Those series were arranged when scheduled series against South Africa for England and against South Africa for Australia were cancelled because of South Africa's apartheid policies and the international movement towards boycotting South Africa because of them had come to the fore.
South Africa's apartheid policy meant that they only played against white nations. Playing for South Australia against a touring South Africa, the normally bare-headed Sobers wanted to make a statement.
Gary, who was batted number 4 for South Australia, said, "Hey Skip, is it all right if I bat in the West Indies cap today, you see?" And, you know, my ears sort of pricked up and I thought, that's a bit strange. Anyhow, Les thought for a while and he said, "Yeah, that's fine, Gary." And he went out and he batted in this West Indies cap and he belted the South Africans all over the park, got 100 and did it in absolute style. And it always fascinated me why he'd asked that. Throw forward now to 1991, where I'm in the Caribbean covering the series for Channel 9 against the West Indies, and I'm having a few beers with Gary in a Barbados beach bar, you see, and we'd had a couple of beers, and I said, "Gary, you remember when you asked Les if he could wear the West Indies cap against South Africa?" I said, "Why'd you do that?" And it's a typical Sobers answer. He said, "Well, Ian," he said, in those days, he said, South Africa had never played against the West Indies. He said, they'd never seen a West Indies cap, and he said, I thought it was time they had a good long look at one.
That's found the gap there, and this is going to be his 150, isn't it?
The team assembled to represent the rest of the world against England in 1970 was bristling with superstars from Australia, South Africa, India, Pakistan and the West Indies. The unofficial 5-test series was won 4-1 by the rest of the world, with Sobers again the star, topping the batting and bowling averages, scoring 2 centuries, 3 50s and taking 21 wickets. While the rest of the world had dominated England, their next tour to Australia was considered a much tougher assignment. It was his innings in the 3rd test at the MCG in 1972 that most endeared Sobers to an adoring Australian public.
They struggled in Perth. 2nd test match against Australia, rest of the world, on a fast, pacey pitch in Perth. They fronted up a young tearaway by the name of Dennis Lillee. And everyone knows at the time that the Wacker pitch was perhaps the fastest and bounciest in world cricket. And they were rolled over for 59. Sobers was out for a duck to Lillee,
And then in the first innings in Melbourne, Dennis bounced him out again. First ball got him for a duck, caught sort of second, third slip somewhere off the shoulder of the bat. And so people were sort of starting to say, oh, has Lillee got the edge on Sobers? Now, I don't know if people were writing that. I wish they hadn't, because it's a very silly thing to do, is to upset Gary Sobers.
And through the field, that's it. 4 runs.
And there were questions being asked about whether Sobers could play genuine fast bowling. At that time, you know, how much longer did Sobers have in the game and things like that. And I'm pretty sure that all the talk did fire up Sobers, made him very determined for his next innings to go in there and show that all the doubts over him were misdirected, that he still had it in him.
After Dennis had got him out for a duck, we were sitting having a drink in the dressing room, and Gary walked into our dressing room, you see, and he walked straight over to Dennis. Dennis is sitting there, and he tapped him on the shoulder and he said, hey, listen, son, he said, I can bowl bouncers too. He said, but I bat better than you, you see, and we all laughed.
It was with the bat where Sobers would really make his mark. During the second innings, he reached his century in 129 balls and was 139 not out at the end of day 3.
There was a straight drive he played against Lillee, which is still talked about in cricket circles, when Sobers acknowledges that he had to change his mind halfway through the shot, and managed to do so, had to hit him down the ground for 4.
Straight down the ground, great shot. Beautiful shot.
It just goes to show how quick he was. Quick in thought, quick in movement, and quick in eye.
Magnificent shot, and Sobers does not move from the crease.
He was an extraordinary player. So much poise, so much balance, and of course placement. Something which is often overlooked was the placement. He could place the ball immaculately.
Magnificent shot, and that's 4 runs. There's his 250.
Sobers would reach his 250 with 33 4s and 2 6s. He was eventually dismissed for 254.
He could be out. Doug Walters caught it mid-on. Gary Sobers leaves the ground. The crowd is standing. I'll say no more. Just listen to that crowd.
The innings was described by Don Bradman as probably the greatest exhibition of batting ever seen in Australia.
That's the ultimate accolade, isn't it? The ultimate compliment from the great man, the greatest batsman.
He approached Test cricket, any cricket, as if it was a club match. He was relaxed. It was as if he was playing cricket in the Bayland with the boys with whom he had grown up. And that was something which came across in everything he did on a cricket field. Whether it was a test match, a first-class match, whatever it was. Sobers always looked at ease, always enjoying himself, never struggling. So many of those who played with and against him will say that they've never seen Sobers really struggle. When he was batting, bowling, everything came naturally to him.
When he retired in 1974, after 93 tests, he'd scored 8,032 runs and taken 235 wickets. Gary Sobers would be knighted for his services to the game by Queen Elizabeth in Barbados in 1975. But his greatness lies in his awesome all-round talent and the way he played the game.
He was a gent for a start, Gary. He knew how good he was, and again, he had a great respect for the game and for the people he played against. I've never ever heard a bad word about Gary Sobers from anybody, and he took everybody to the cleaners.
There wasn't anything that was normal about Gary's cricket. He was, I mean, the word genius is probably tossed around a bit too often, but in my book, Gary was a cricketing genius.
I don't think we need worry about that. That's gone right into the crowd.
And in recent times, we've seen some of the greatest batsmen of all time. Extraordinary talents. Tendulkar, Lara, Ponting, extraordinarily gifted men. But you're invariably in discussions, the first name that always bobs up was Bradman, and then comes Sobers. Who was the greatest cricketer? Certainly the greatest batsman, unquestionably, was Bradman.
What a good piece of bowling.
But when it comes to the greatest cricketer, you can mount a very strong argument indeed for Sobers.